Welcome to another episode of Talks with KG. And this episode is an extremely special episode. We have here, what to call you, Mr. Kublalsingh? What title should I give you?
Call me Wayne.
We have Mr. Dr. Wayne Kublalsingh.
All right.
Everything good?
God bless you.
Yeah, man.
Thanks
God
for
blessings
inviting
all
me.
the time. You know, I appreciate this one. You know, a good friend of mine put me onto you and she was like, KG, you're doing a good job with the show that you're doing. You're educating the people. I think you should interview Dr. Wayne. And I was like, who? Who you talking about? And when she told me who she talking about, I was like, me? Me? You think I could do that? Like, you think I'm capable of interviewing, you know? Because, sir, I had to call you sir, you know, just out of respect. Since I was going to school and all these things, you know, you would hear your name coming up for all different types of reasons. But the one thing that stood out to me as a youth growing up was the hunger strike, obviously. You know, and me as a little warrior, you know, coming up as a youth too, you know, and I was always fans of like the Rebels, Bob Marley, and that was always my vibe, you know, because I'm an artist too, right? I started as an artist, as singing, producing music, and I would always be fans of like Peter Tosh and, you know, certain ones that fight for the cause through the music and these things. So Dr. Wayne catch my attention immediately. And I mean, I was young, so obviously I didn't understand exactly what it was. I know you was fighting for what you thought was right, but I really didn't know what was going on. Now I reached this stage in my life. I am 33 years old, you know, and the universe, you know, bring Dr. Wayne to me. And now I have the pleasure of sitting down here with you and, you know, getting the insight and getting the history of who you are and the things that you do in this country. So let's take it all the way to the beginning. As I said, who is Dr. Wayne Kublalsingh?
Well, I suppose we should begin with my activist career.
Right.
It's a very long career. It started in 2002.
Right.
You know, one of our main assets in the past,
Mm-hmm.
that's how many of the Africans and East Indians came here,
Right.
was the sugar industry. The French came and they cut down the forests with their slaves in the revolutionary era. You know, when they left Haiti, they brought their slaves.
Right.
They established plantations. The British were here, also established plantations, hundreds of little estates, they call them.
Mm-hmm.
And it all boiled down like bargee in the 1970s to one company called Carney Limited.
Right.
And the government decided to close it down.
Mm.
Now, this company was so very wealthy. It had as many assets as the state itself, 77,000 acres of land. They had a rail system, they had labs, they had a whole plethora of skilled labor, experience built up over many generations.
Right.
They had the industries, all the factories at Orange Grove and Carney and Forest Park and so on, and they were producing cane.
Right.
There was some resistance to the closure by the workers, but that relented very shortly afterwards.
Right.
And I said, well, why not, instead of closing it completely, why not save some of it to produce a little sugar
Right.
for the people down in the south and Barrackpore and so on, who would still own and who had the requisite technology and the insight and the experience.
Right.
And we were producing rum as well,
Mm-hmm.
all of the rum assets, call them the rum stocks,
Right.
that Fernandez used to make rum with. Why don't we take this land, 77,000 acres of land, and lever it for economic development? For example, creating a horticultural revolution in fruit, because you know our health system is burdened by people who are very ill,
Right.
they don't eat properly and so on. And for keeping the buffalo stocks, for example,
Right.
we had a new variety of buffalo stocks which were developed in Trinidad and Tobago. And for also doing a lot of agriculture on the land and so on, because we had a lot of educated people with labs and so on. We had the rice, we had not only the sugarcane, but we also had the rice, and we had a feedstock station. So instead of closing all of this, why don't we save it and build a economic diversification platform for Trinidad and Tobago, which we haven't done yet. 77,000 acres of land. You know where that stretch? From St. Augustine, way down to Chigonas, Claxton Bay, Couva, down to Rio Claro, down to Barrackport, down to Pinal. It's a whole length of the western corridor.
Yeah.
Well, I wrote this book. This is the book I wrote. This one here. Right? This is a framework for national development. How do you use these 77,000 acres of land to develop Trinidad and Tobago?
Right.
Because it stretches from north to south, central, all over the place, you know?
Right.
And it already has a lot of experience and lots of technology there, you know? And I got together 40 lecturers and consulted with them, did interviews with them,
Right.
and I produced this statement. And I gave it to the Manning government. The Minister of Agriculture then was Mr. John Rahal.
Right.
And he said, yes, build some more copies. Now, I'm a qualified bookbinder, professional bookbinder. I did about 4 years of studies of bookbinding. And I was very eager. Wow, he's taking me on. So I bound this into a big thesis and took it to him.
Right.
A framework for national development, a University of the West Indies currently limited position paper, which I wrote
Yeah,
with the assistance of 2 students.
I see I have a few books.
Yeah, well, I own a publishing company. We produced about 29 books, but we could leave that for a little bit later.
Right.
But this, Caroni.
Yeah.
And they ignored Kublalsingh and they went and shut down the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right?
So they locked down the whole sugar.
They locked down the whole thing.
Trinidad don't make sugar.
End of sugar,
since that.
end of the rail system, end of the labs, end of the experience,
Yeah.
end of that.
Why though? What was their reasoning for that?
Well, the reasoning was that the Europeans, they were not going to pay us the same kind of preference from 2008 onwards, and that panicked them. But no, why you panic? You're an independent man, an independent thinker. You have land there. Don't let the Europeans panic you.
Right.
You understand? You panic for your own self.
So so the government thought that they would have made a loss?
They thought they would have not been able to sell sugar at a profitable loss, but there were other aspects of the industry, as I said. There was the buffalo, there was the rice, there was the ability. Orange Grove could have done a lot of things which the NRS started to do. You know, so there was a whole possibility for economic development on a large scale. You could have developed parks and sports culture and museums and all kinds of different things if you had some imagination as an independent thinker or country. Well, that was that. So Kublalsingh didn't put his tail between his legs because they started with smelter, because they wanted to go with smelter on the west coast.
Right.
2 smelters, smelter number 1 and 2, one in Labrador called Alutrint, and the other one called the Alcohol smelter in Chatham.
Right.
That is where I really got involved and struggled, began to live down there. And the smelter victory was won.
Before you go into that, right? For the people that are looking on, and even for myself, because I am learning, tonight I learning, right?
Yeah.
How did you reach to that point where Kublalsingh was this man that was, you know, fighting for certain cause on that level? Like, because the first time I heard your name, as I say, I am learning. So the first time I heard your name was already there. But I didn't know where you come from, how you reached there, how you became Dr. Wayne Kublalsingh.
Well, I went to a number of universities.
Right.
Actually, I studied Bob Marley at the University of the West Indies. I went to Jamaica and I went to Trenchtown and I studied his music. I had all his albums and so on. I was studying Caribbean music, its capacity for social change. Sparrow and Louis Bennett and Miss Binted Breeze.
So you used to study Caribbean music. That was your studies
And country,
in
yes.
university?
And I did a master's
Really?
in that, yeah. My professor was Professor Role, who had an interest in music as well and calypso. Right, so I got a master's there. And then I went to Columbia and got another master's.
Same music in the...
Not music, no. This was more hardcore classical literature.
No, but it was arts. You was
Arts,
studying
yes,
arts, basically.
Yes, arts.
So in
Yeah,
Columbia and you're
novels,
studying arts too.
poems and so on, arts.
Right.
I was into art.
Arts, right.
I started at a very small age reading. My mother had a school, a primary school, and I somehow picked up language, and language just comes to me. I don't know, just language just comes to me and provokes me to write.
Really?
Yeah, it just provokes me to write. I suppose if you're
Of course.
if you're a writer, if you're a musician, it doesn't always come.
Yeah.
But suddenly the sound comes in your head and the
Yeah.
voice comes in there and your word comes in. I'm not looking for it, it just comes.
It just comes,
And I'm
yeah.
forced to write. You know, I'm committed to write.
Yeah, something inspire you.
Yeah, it's just something about
Yeah.
my brain. It just brings writing into my head and language
Right.
into my head. And good phrases, I believe, into my head. Classy lines, I think.
Right.
So then I went to Oxford University and did a PhD there. And I studied children's books.
Children's
Because I was
books.
very much intrigued and interested, and to some extent devastated by the low quality of reading in our primary schools. And if you don't know how to read in your primary school, that really sets you at a very big disadvantage in life. And I wanted to study reading, and I studied the textbooks of Coleridge and other writers who wrote books during the colonial time between 1940 and 1900. All the publishers and the reading and how reading developed and so on. Because I wanted to come back to Trinidad and make a big change in the reading pedagogy. Pedagogy is methods.
Right.
Coleridge was a old senior public servant from Liverpool who had come and become the Minister of Education here and so on.
Right.
And he had done a lot of revolutionary things. You know, he wrote many books and so on. So I wanted to study him and what was his view on things.
Right.
So that's how I got I also went to the army. I spent 4 years in the British Army.
In the
So
British Army.
Yeah, the British Army, yes. So I was always a bit of a kind of a guy who was, I'm not so sure if I could say radical, but I was always a conservative person, very conservative.
Right.
I don't do anything dangerous, but when the radical options come, which are safe, I take them.
Yeah.
Because I fight on behalf of
understand.
communities.
I understand.
And the communities invite me. I've never gone to a community. It's the people in County who invited me. Somebody in County who invited me to come down there. The people in Chatham who invited me. People in Claxon who invited me. People in Savannah who invited me. The people in the Europuch Lagoon who invited me on highway. I never went. I live in the north.
Yeah.
They invite me.
So what made them invite you though? Like, what were you doing
they
for
saw
them
my
to
struggles
say?
with they saw my struggles with the smelter.
Right.
Yeah, I became either notorious or famous for smelter.
Right.
Because when the Chatham smelter was there, I went down there and built a tent. And the name of the tent was Warren Smelter. That was the name.
So what was the smelter?
Smelter was a big industry to produce aluminum
Right.
from ores in Brazil and so on. And the problem with it is that they were shifting whole communities. They were cutting down the forests down there. They were moving all of the beekeepers. They were shutting down the milk factory. And it was not economic. I'm not an environmentalist, really, a hardcore environmentalist. But environmental assets like these are economic assets. And when these large-scale environmental assets are being threatened, these are economic assets that we're threatening. Because people live off them. For example, in Labrador, they shut down the dam. People used to fish.
Right.
You know, it used to produce leisure. For country people, ordinary people, but the politicians up there, they just read a map and they just read some lines. They don't really take these things into account, the economic assets of the people.
Right.
So the people invited me because of my notoriety, in, especially the Alotrin smelter. When Alotrin came already, the Chinese were here. The Chinese come down with the shovels and the tools and the tractors, and they were here. They already put building, and so I go in the wet mud to go and spy on them, see how I could make some intrusion under the wire and so on with my little experience. And then I took it to court. And I sat for 40 days outside the EMA. And I got a Zeppo from the chairman.
What's a Zeppo?
A Zeppo is a little message. He called me in one day and said, Wayne, you know, we gave a certificate for the smelter.
Right.
But there was no way to dispose of the spent pot lining, which is the most toxic ingredient in smelting. 50 years of toxicity. 50 years of toxicity, and they haven't made any kind of provisions for the disposal.
Right.
I took them to court on that. I went down to the southern people and said, come join me. They didn't want to join me at all because there's a smelter already built. We stopped the smelter. That was that, no smelter. So I think because of that, and because of my writings in newspaper, I began writing for newspaper in 2007, people began to establish in their mind a certain kind of person, you know, a certain kind of motive, but they're not quite clear what it is.
Right.
You know, so I'm very glad for this opportunity that the universe has brought me to you.
Yeah, no, for sure.
As you said, to explain myself.
Yeah, no lie.
Yeah.
So let's go straight into the hunger strike.
Yeah.
Because I say that is really what me as a youth, Dr. Kublalsingh, name come up, it's hunger strike. So tell me more about that. What was that?
All right. Well, I was in my home one day, and we had just won a number of battles.
Right.
Government wanted to build a huge, long industrial estate on the west coast, like Dubai. You know, they had this fantasy of the Dubai experience. You know, lights and magical
On the west, like
glitter
west
and
side,
so
like
on.
Port of Spain.
Yeah, like that kind of thing. Now, you know, with
In Port of
malls.
Spain?
Yeah. No, from quite down on Shagrama, straight down going to Labrador, the whole of the west coast.
Really?
Yeah, industrial estates, 5 industrial estates.
Yeah.
Lick up the ports and build new ports.
Right.
All right? They wanted to build huge amounts in the sea in Otaheite.
Mm-hmm.
So I went down there to the people in Otaheite, the fishermen, and we won that struggle. We won the Labrador struggle, we won the Chatham struggle. Sorry to be kind of boasting like this. We went to Claxonby where they wanted to put down a steel mill, an industrial estate, and close down the port, and destroy the mangrove. We won that struggle again. It's the communities which invited me, and we fought together.
How do you win these struggles? Through court?
I win it though. I win it through a lot of prayers,
Right.
through a lot of professional constancy, through legal action, and through action on the ground. Action after action after action, heavyweight action. Never stop acting, never stop figuring out ways of doing things. So for example, in Claxonby we built a barge, and I went out there with the barge, and they came out there with their boat, and they tried to grab us. And my friend Peter Vine was there, he jumped in the water, but I was there with my little canoe too and tried to outmaneuver them, tried to ram us in, you know.
Right.
I have about 10 arrests, still facing 10 arrests. But that's what I mean by action after action after action. You have to act.
Yeah.
You have
No
to
lie.
act, you know. I'm not I can't even meditate. I try to meditate, my mind doesn't stand still. So I am born, I don't know, maybe I am born just to act out things. Anyhow, you asked me the question about
so
hunger
the
strike.
hunger strike, like what
So
was
I
the
had
hunger
this,
strike?
I had this, my name became known.
Right.
And the people in South were facing a problem. There was a highway that they were building from San Fernando to Point 14,
Right.
which they were very happy with. Yeah, no problems. But they were building one through the communities called David to Mont Desir, which was part of that main system. It was a different arm.
Right.
But it was passing through the lagoon. It was destroying 500 properties. It was making people move, people who have historically inherited that land, a food basket with their rice and their short crops and their bodi and their peas and their cantaloupe and their honeydew lemon. Maybe you don't know what a honeydew lemon is. And their moong dal and all these things. You know, Indian people are from India.
Of course.
There's a little India there.
Yeah.
So it was mostly Indian people. Just a sprinkle
I
of
personally
African
never
people.
saw the land that they was talking about. So I didn't even know it was look or anything like
Well, it
that.
was lagoon land. They called it lagoon
Right.
land. Yeah. And they were building this highway there across the lagoon, which is a wetland. And they came to me very late. They went to Mr. Mirage to fight a case for them, Lawrence Mirage. He said, try Kublalsingh. So they called me and I went down and I looked at it and I wasn't convinced because the EMA had already granted the certificate of environmental clearance to go ahead.
Right.
So once that is granted, well, you have very little action. I mean, what kind of action you want to do now? They grant a certificate, they say everything is good. So I went into the EMA and I studied the files and I saw that they had given the certificate prematurely. The government had rushed the EMA.
Right.
The minister had rushed the EMA. Check your records and see who was the minister at the time. He's still minister of something,
Right.
or a prominent minister. He rushed the EMA. And I'm not saying this, but this came out afterwards as well in the Armstrong report. I'll tell you about that. And they didn't do the hydrological studies. They didn't do a proper social impact studies. In other words, you're moving 500 families. How are you going to remove them? What kind of compensation?
Right.
You know, when are you going to compensate them?
Right.
You know, and if the tides are moving back and forth, this is a flood-prone area. Do you understand the hydrology of the area? Not just the hydraulics, which is bridge and so on, but do you understand how the water behaves in that area, right? And do you understand the environmental impacts?
And these are things that they have to
They had to
research
do,
before.
and they didn't do it properly.
Yeah.
So I went down there and started to fight. I wrote Kamala Prasad Bisesa, the then government minister. They had given the certificate. The PNM had given the certificate 1 month before the general elections because Kamala had said, Mrs. Kamala had said, Mrs. Kamala Prasad had said, we're going to stop the highway. Later she didn't stop it, she continued. So I went to the EMA and found out that they had not done their studies. They had given the certificate, relented is the word the Armstrong used.
Right.
They had not given them a good certificate. In other words, you're going to drive a car and you bribe and you get a
Yeah.
good certificate. Right? For your car drive. They want to drive down the highway there and they want to make a highway, but they didn't get a proper certificate. It was not properly constituted. They had not done all the studies. There were warnings and so on. They didn't take on the warnings. So on the basis of that, I wrote to the then Prime Minister, Kamala Prasad Bisesta, a few times. She didn't respond. She was in India and so on. I lobbied in front of her office. We lobbied at her home. Action after action in the night. We went by her house in the night. Soldiers were there. We went in front of her office. She agreed to meet with us.
Right.
So she met with us. The following day, action. Next following day, we get action. We went with our big flags and so on. Well, you know, Indian people, they look like to protest. But these Indian people, young people, they protest. And so people say, what?
Yeah.
These Indian people come out, boy. Country people.
Yeah.
So the country Indian people come out. Old people, young people, all kind of people come out, man. About 100 people come out.
Right.
All right, it's a meeting. When we went the next day to the meeting in the Parliament building, they had all the big ministers were there. Mr. Warner was there. Ms. Kamala Prasad Bisesta was there with a little cup. You couldn't see what was in the cup. The Minister Rudal Munilal was there. All the big wigs in the UNC. Chandra Sharma was there. The Minister of Energy was there. The Minister of Works was there. I can't remember his name. From Faizabad. They were all there.
Yeah.
And then they left for a short while. They didn't want to listen to us too much.
Yeah.
And then the Prime Minister said, okay, I will do a review. She promised us a review. Now there is a law which was established in 2002 by Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj, which was introduced to him, saying that if you get an undertaking from a politician, they must abide by the undertaking, if it is a good and legal commitment.
Right.
So we took them to court on that in 2012. And we continued resisting, because she said she's going to do a review. Why are you continuing with the highway? Why you don't do the review? We was going to the land, we jumping on tractors, we setting fires on tires, we camped down there, we established a camp in DB, you know. And then they destroyed our camp. We had a big camp in DB.
Yeah, they mash it up.
It was going, they sent the army and they just mashed it up. They arrested me. Severe problems afterwards with my arthritis. Police and so on, to lift me from behind.
What were you arrested for?
Well, because I wouldn't leave the site.
Right.
I kept going back on the site. You know, I used to live down there, and I got a call very early, 6 o'clock in the morning. Kublalsingh come to destroy. Kublalsingh rushed down there. Everybody disappeared except Elizabeth, who is now deceased, and Mr. Bhagwan Singh, Kublalsingh. So I go in and sitting right in the tent because, you know, this tent is legal. We got permission from Namdevko to build this Namdevko land. They didn't know that.
Right.
The police come, they don't know what's going on. The soldiers come, they don't know what's going on. Mr. Warner doesn't know what's going on. Mr. Warner come with the police. He don't know I got permission to live thing there, but I never told him that. All right, so we had a legal right to be there.
Yeah.
They arrest Kublalsingh, carry him down and that kind of thing. So they mashed up the camp. So I said, okay, you want action? Next day we go on Port of Spain. All right, we established another camp.
Right.
And then back on the land, they started action work, Faizabad. When I went down there, the people had become tired of action after action after action.
Right.
Old people.
Yeah.
It was just a few old men. I said, I'm not moving until the government do the studies. Government has to do these studies. A social impact study, environmental impact study, cost-benefit environmental study, a hydrological study. And I'm not going to eat. And the following day, the hunger strike continued, and it continued for 21 days. So that's how it continued. And eventually the government agreed to do the study. It's called the Armstrong Report by 19 experts. And it confirmed what I was saying, to put it generally.
Yeah.
And we won the matter in court.
You
But
see?
the highway hasn't been built. David to Montezuma has not been built. They finished 1 kilometer of 15. Many people think the highway built. Point Fortin Highway, we are against the highway. We don't want the Point Fortin Highway. That's not true.
Yeah.
We want the Point Fortin Highway, but there's an arm called David to Montezuma, which runs through the communities, 13 communities, which we don't want. So they built 1 kilometer of that, and that's the status. It's in court. There was an appeal recently, and let's see how it goes. So that's the hunger strike. The hunger strike was it was very specific, and I learned this from Gandhi. If you're asking for something, it has to be specific. I want you to do these studies, otherwise I will not eat. For 21 days I eat nothing, I drink nothing, except I went to hospital a couple of times and they put some drips, which I suppose saved my life.
Yeah.
But so that's the hunger strike.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we know Dr. Kublalsingh for, you know, everybody, all the youths out there, but
So
yeah,
I was kind of,
yeah,
yeah, kind of managed, you know, and
yeah,
a lot of youths like me, a lot of youths, you know, they
yeah,
like me, you know, especially African youths and so on.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
like this kind of
Oh, yeah,
spirit, you
man.
know.
Oh, yeah, man. You know, that's that kind of vibes, you know, like,
Yeah.
it's not everybody could do that,
Yeah. So
you know.
you have to tackle the government.
Yeah,
You have to
you
tackle the
have
government.
to.
Don't be afraid of the government. Tackle the highest people in government.
Yeah,
If you want serious revolutionary change, you have to do
yeah.
that.
No, for sure, for sure.
That is the message. You have to do it. You have to do it. I mean, one person can make a difference. You just have to
Yeah,
have your following, you know.
yeah,
Just
no,
be
like,
very creative and you just go, man. But be
well, I
very
just,
careful. None of the people whom I work with
yeah,
ever got locked up for long. Although 7 of us are facing charges since 2012. 7 of us are
yeah.
still facing charges. I have about 11 or 10. And none of us got injured or anything. Many people died in the movement, about 16 people. But that is just through the last 5 years through, I suppose, attrition and so on.
Right. Well, yeah, man, well, let's take a little break, because I know we have more to talk about.
All
And we'll
right.
come back.
Thanks very
Boom.
much.
Yeah, man, back again. So, Dr. Wayne, we know you are author, right? And out of all these books here, this one interests me the most.
The
You
name.
know, Ital Revolution.
Yeah.
Is Ital man?
Well, I like the word Ital. You know why?
Yeah,
Because it's real.
yeah.
And a lot of things in the world are fake. They're not real.
What does Ital mean though?
Ital means genuine.
Genuine.
When the Rastafari say Ital, it means no salt. It means food pure.
Yeah,
So Ital Revolution is a revolution which is genuine, authentic, real. You know? So I like that word Ital Revolution.
so it's a real
It's
revolution.
a real revolution, you know, real, authentic, you know, no kind of fake revolution. You have to be
Yeah.
real with the people, always be honest and very, very straightforward. Otherwise, they'll catch you out. Like
lie.
one said, Kublalsingh in doubles behind a car. You know what I mean? People believe that kind of nonsense, you know? They believe
Yeah.
that.
You see to the back here, thank God for Rastafari. Rastafari has given us this wonderful word, Ital. This word means real, essential, authentic. I love this. It is an indigenous word created by an indigenous community in the Caribbean, the Rastafari. Ital food, for example, means food which is natural, without salt, without chemicals, pure. Ital development is development which is real. It actually generates resources, land, food, health, energy, rather than deplete them. It creates wealth rather than impoverishment. It is biased and authentic.
Bias, check that
It is biased on authentic development.
Right, it is based on authentic development.
Oh shit, sorry, oh God, it is based.
Yes.
I think it's the shades.
Yeah, the word bias
Yeah,
the word
yeah.
bias and Ital don't go together.
Correct. It is based on authentic development, not deals. It is essential. It is rooted in our local geography. It respects the intrinsic, that is the word?
Intrinsic, correct?
Some different words there, but intrinsic value of land, water, vegetation, air, social practices, and people. These stocks of wealth, says Ital development, constitute the vital resources of a nation, and not, for example, paper, a paper economy, a decline in US dollar. I like this one. Something about this one.
Well, it's a series of essays
Ital,
that I wrote for the
yeah.
newspapers,
Right.
and it praises a lot of the people in the community. So it says, thank God for Mrs. Ashby, who started this smelter struggle. Thank God for Peter Vine. Thank God for Mr. Kishore with the port. So all of these heroes,
Right.
I am promoting myself as some kind of hero, but the real heroes, the most authentic people you could ever find, the intelligentsia in this country are there, and they're the ones who led. I just advise and was with them and give them action and make them feel brave now.
Yeah.
Make them go forward, and they won. So it's a praise really to each of these people in the communities who did so well. Miss Samday, for example, in Claxton Bay, you know,
Right.
all of them did so well. the communities, leaders in the communities.
So there are a lot of people like yourself out here as a sense of fighting for causes and winning.
Well, they fight for their own cause, but you know,
Yeah.
to migrate to another cause is very difficult. So when they finish with their cause, that's it. But they fight. They fight. You know what I
They're
mean? They fight
fighting.
and they
They're
fight
fighting
very
for
nicely,
something.
and very richly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But to
You
bring
still
them up to
fighting?
another cause, they don't
You
really.
still fighting?
Huh?
You still fighting at this
Well,
age?
a lot of, well, I've been very ill recently because
Yeah.
I had double knee surgery. I replaced both knees in December, and I'm finding it extraordinarily difficult. My knees are fine,
Yeah.
but I have a lot of problems with my stomach and other difficulties which I'm
Yeah.
trying to my best to overcome.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So
That's right,
yeah, this is a
yes.
dedication to those heroes, you know, who you don't see in the newspapers. When they die, you don't see their names. They don't get prizes, you know.
Yeah.
But there are lots of them. And I wish I had an activist building where I could put up their photos and
Yeah,
so on.
yeah, yeah.
Lots of great people in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah. So how many books have you wrote?
I've written, well, a number of books, about 29 books. I've written children's
29
books.
books.
Yeah. As I said, I had an understanding that children need to read and practice reading local books. And so I've written about 14 children's books. I've written many books on development. This, for example, is a book on development. All the book, this is a book on smelter.
Right.
And it gives you 100 questions on smelter. So it was distributed to the people down there so they will understand smelter.
Right.
Right? I had a printery, I had a company, and I had workers. I had a bindery, I would do book binding, and I did my own stuff.
So you're so used to
Yeah.
your own
But
thing.
when I got during the hunger strike, everything fell apart because my hands, after the police arrest, my hands and everything froze. My legs became very stiff. I couldn't manage, and eventually in 2023, I couldn't walk at all. So a lot of my arthritis, which I had a mild case of, was aggravated over the last 10 or 12 years. And so it has led me to this phase. But we have a lot of court matters. We have
Right.
matters in court. I was arrested in Arima for helping the Arima market vendors. That's still pending.
Serious.
Yeah, I still have matters in Siparia, in
gosh.
Pinal, and all over the place, Port of Spain.
That comes with it. That comes with
yeah.
it. Yeah. I promised to fight.
That's a manifesto I wrote last year.
Yeah.
It's a manifesto. I was hoping to go around to the political parties, all of these young, emerging political leaders, and give them an insight into what this is about.
Yeah.
It's about ideal development. It's about real development. You know, Dr. Rowley, I don't want to get too much into politics.
Right.
He's very keen to stay in power. One of the reasons is that there is a very important gas deal, the Dragon and Manatee oil fields across there, and he wants to collaborate on with the Venezuelans. And if that comes through in the next 4 years, Trinidad and Tobago could become pretty gas wealthy, monetarily wealthy. But just my imagination and my guess, my foresight tells me, he's going to use this money not for developmental purposes, not to develop, for example, a horticultural revolution,
Right.
not to impact on poverty, not to develop an industrial estate with sustainable development technologies, not to build sustainable houses with beautiful independent water collecting services and so on, all kinds of, or develop the cocoa industry. He doesn't go to the cocoa industry, he's not there, he's never there.
Right.
He's abroad looking for gas deals. He goes to India, he goes to Ghana, he goes to America. Gas is on his mind.
Right.
He's going to pay the public servants, and he's going to pay his way, and all of this money is going to not go into development. And I think that's a very important time when I think we really need to think seriously about real development, especially in schools for children. A
Right.
skills-based education. Children coming out of schools have very little skills, very little skills, including reading skills, many of them. So you need that revolution in schools, definitely.
Yeah.
And that money should be used, the second oil boom, if it is, for that purpose.
Yeah. So, Santa P. Hill. What is Santa P. Hill?
Well, remember that there was a steel mill in Clarksonville. We had to, Indian steel mill, Indian people from India came to build a steel mill. And remove the houses and so on, you know, in the community,
Right.
you know, and destroy the port, Fisherman's Port. And there were two ladies starring there. One is Miss Samday and Miss Daisy. And when I checked their records, they themselves had built that village. They started that village squatting and built the village into a very prosperous village. So I decided to write Santa P. Hill, which is basically on a hill. There's no nothing like Santa P. How two women by themselves
Right.
with all your strength and tenacity, built a village. Over 40 years, they built a village.
These books should be in schools.
Well, I think so, but I have nobody to promote them.
Promote them as in what? Like,
Yeah, well, I'm not a promoter, you know, I'm just a writer. I
just a
write
writer.
books. But to say go and sell them and promote them and say this book is about that,
yeah.
I could say that, but I mean, I don't know. I don't have the skills to promote. I put them on Amazon,
Right.
and I hope they will live into
Yeah, let's
posterity.
hope for the best.
Yeah, Amazon has a bookshop there. But nobody, if nobody looks at it, nobody knows it's there, then nobody goes for them.
You have a bookshop,
No. Amazon has
so-
its own bookstore.
but you put the physical copies.
Yes, they print it.
In-
They're
into
the
the-
printers. Okay,
Right.
so when I just finished a book, because I was going through a very harrowing time, a very difficult time, and I decided to draw. I simply drew. And when I drew, I began to draw. I drew for 3 months and produced a children's book for 60 pages. I recently was published on Amazon. You know? So it goes into Amazon, and anybody who wants it can order it from Amazon. But that's not a good system, because it means local people literally, they're not going to go on Amazon and buy a book. Very few people are.
Yeah.
So I need local agents and foreign agents and all of that, which is a different story.
Yeah. And the children books.
Oh, well, I've written a number of children's books. This one is called Mano Moto Maxi and the Maxi Taxi.
Yeah.
It's about the
What's
Arriva
this
Maxi,
one,
Arriva Maxi Taxi.
Yeah.
It's about the M-men, famous African M-men. Michael X, Malcolm Marshall, not Michael X, sorry, Malcolm X. Malcolm Marshall, Mutabaruka, Mali, stopping at Macquarie Junction, Maloney Junction, Morsika Junction, all the M's.
Well, look. Son.
I wrote that book in 1997, and I bound it, you see. I was a book binder.
997.
Yeah, it's an old book. But
I
it's on
mean-
Amazon.
What's this? Now we should have these books in school, man.
Yeah. Bigging up young African men. It's very
Come on.
important. That was the point of it,
Yeah.
you know. Bigging up great men whose names begin with M. Malcolm X.
Yeah.
Who is
I
that?
like this.
Magic Johnson.
Yeah.
It's Magic?
Mike Johnson.
Magic Johnson.
At McCoy, a man who picks up a smiling man. Yeah. So, Mr. Wayne, I know you are a spiritual man. You would know this, I would know this, but at a time I went up Balandra. I think it was Balandra. I think I went up there with the family for the weekend,
Yeah.
and we ended up coming by, can't remember the name of that particular bay or that beach. And you were there. I saw you there. I remember
Really?
that was about, how long that was? About 5 years ago. It was about 5, 6 years ago, that kind of vibes. And I went there and you were there alone. And
Really?
Yeah. And you was sitting down and you was practically meditating. You was just looking into the ocean. And you was
All
just
right.
there
You
and-
sure you have the right one?
Of course.
All right.
Come on. You remember being on the beach anywhere up there?
Yeah. I often go to Toko.
Yeah.
And the North Coast.
Yeah. No, it was you. It was
Yeah.
you. And it was there. And you're holding your meds and I watch you like, you know, Mr. Kublalsingh holding the meditation, boy. Are you into that type of vibes like meditation and
Well, I can't
do
meditate.
that
I've tried my
frequently?
best to
You
meditate.
can't meditate because
Yeah,
your
I
mind
find it
always
very
running.
difficult.
So you try to meditate
try.
because you know you need it.
Yeah, I know I need it, but I do a lot of deep breathing because
Yeah.
that's a physical thing
Yeah.
to calm myself down because I now suffer from a lot of anxiety because of the operation and because of my constant illness.
Yeah.
You know, you suffer from anxieties. So during the hunger strike, I think what kept me going, and I had more strength than in the sense I had more spiritual strength, was because I knew I would survive this. I knew that I would not die. You know, I just had the faith. So I said, through the others, through the corn. And any of my good friends would come and say, Wayne, no, stop. I would be very angry with them and I would actually CURSE them, real cursing, because I was
Yeah.
antagonistic towards them. You know,
Correct.
you don't understand what's going on here, brother.
Yeah.
It's between me and God.
You're bigger than
I
that.
can't die.
Yeah.
Yeah? And if I said a prayers, I believe it to come true then because something about the hunger strike made me a powerful person.
Maybe
Anything
make
I
you stronger.
said, I felt that would come true.
Yeah.
You know, and I survived it. The Armstrong produced a report 2 months later, and it justified what we were saying, what I was saying about the group. So that's the kind of spirituality I am. But I am not a saintly person.
Saintly as it. What do you mean?
Saintly because during the hunger strike, the second hunger strike, because the second hunger strike took place because the government continued with the highway and ignored the Armstrong report.
Yeah.
After I sat 200 days in front of the office saying, obey the Armstrong report.
Yeah.
So Kamala Prasad says her government, and she had said no smelter, no highway, before her government. She continued afterwards, that's why they came to me. She gave us a promise, we won in court, and she still continued. So the second hunger strike was particularly difficult and terribly horrific. It did terrible things to my body, my systems, you know. I don't want to describe what it did, but it was a lot of difficult things to my body. And I cursed a lot.
Yeah.
I cursed the government a lot.
Cursed.
And I cursed in the sense of get them out of power.
Right.
Get them out of power.
Yeah.
They're crooks.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of character I am. I'm not a saintly person.
Yeah.
So I sort of almost cursed them out of power.
Yeah.
You know, I was angry. So you think you should be in a meditative state and you'd be, you know, calm. And I wasn't like that in the second hunger strike.
You say you cannot meditate, right?
Yeah.
So when you do try to meditate, like let's say you go by the beach and you relax yourself, what's be running through your mind when you just
What runs? That's a very important question.
Yeah.
Well, my son, I have a son who is just a little younger than you. He's 32. He's in Germany.
Yeah.
And when I think, I say, suppose I die, boy. Suppose I die. I always think about my son. I mean, you know, a 32-year-old man losing his dad, and my wife who is pretty elderly, you know, quite elderly. I always think about that, you know, their future, and supporting them.
Yeah.
And then I think about the causes all the time, or causes. We always have causes in court. We have about 5 or 6 matters in court right now. St. Augustine Nurseries, I didn't tell you about that.
Yeah.
We challenged the government who wanted to build houses there.
Right.
And we got an injunction, so there are no houses there. And let's hear what the court will say about it. The court's supposed to rule sometime soon.
Right.
So I was the one who stood up. Politicians or the UNC stood up and said, no, we don't want it, but they didn't challenge them in court. I challenged them in court.
Right.
Sorry to sound like this. But I challenged them in court and the court stopped it. I don't think there are going to be any more houses in St. Augustine Nurseries because that is an Ital asset. The St. Augustine Nurseries provide plants for people. It provides stocks of plants. It provides knowledge.
Right.
You can't just build a housing scheme right where the nursery is. Not good.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by Ital.
Yeah,
Ital
Ital.
development.
Yeah,
Do your
yeah.
studies.
Yeah.
Look at the nursery. Look at its future. You know what you could do with that nursery? If you're the Prime Minister, you could do plenty of things with that nursery. Plant all kind of trees all over Trinidad and Tobago. Beautiful trees. Kaime trees and balata trees and shatine trees and breadfruit trees and trees.
You don't really see that natural, as you say, Ital, like Ital governance. You know, we don't really see that, you know.
Yeah.
You know, they might probably building there, but
you have to look at Trinidad and Tobago as a whole and develop its resources, what you see on the ground.
right. Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Anyway, sorry to talk so much, but that's about my spirituality. It's not a spirituality which is calm.
Yeah.
It's a kind of cursing spirituality, a cussing spirituality.
Yeah. But a man like you, who go through all that fight and all different phases, you know, coming up, but you fighting against the government, you fighting for the people, that would take a lot of mental, you know, that could put a man through so much trauma, so much, as you say, anxiety. How you just deal with that? How you dealt with that coming up?
Well, I always found it pleasurable
Yeah.
to work with communities,
Right.
especially willing communities who wanted to fight.
It never got stressful for you?
It
The
never got
handcuffs
stressful,
on the
no,
wrists and
no.
all these things.
I read the Bhagavad Gita. You should get a chance to read it in English. It's a very
The
short book.
Bhagavad Gita.
Bhagavad Gita, which is an Indian spiritual text.
Right.
And I learned a lot from that. And it says that in the middle of all your actions, even facing death, you have to assume a posture of peace. So it doesn't matter what the struggle is,
Right.
what fight you're involved in. If you don't have peace in the middle of the struggle, when the police officer come to arrest you, he chuck you and beat you up and cuff you and knock you down to the ground. If you look at my videos or the videos of that, my mind is always peaceful. I never get angry.
Calm.
I never get angry with the police. I'm always calm. You know? Sometimes I don't get, and I'm always calm because when Mr. Fuad Khan came to tell me to jump in the ambulance during the hunger strike. He would take me to the hospital. I know what he wanted to do. He wanted to certify me mad in the madhouse. I learned this afterwards because the doctor came and told me that. Certify me mad and get me out of the street. I cussed him up. I apologized afterwards. But I wasn't in the midst of being angry. I mean, I wasn't even angry. It was more in the midst of cursing him. I was very calm.
Right.
You know, so
yeah, it was. I remember it. Yeah, it was.
That made it kind of viral, kind of.
Yeah. It was like, you man vexed, boy.
Kublalsingh eating doubles in the back of a car. Mr. Warner, you know, I remember Mr. Warner, but I go, Mr. Warner.
Say eating.
Say, Mr. Warner. He said, no, that's not true, that's not true.
Yeah.
I said, Mr. Warner, we were right about the highway. He said, yeah, you were right. Anyhow, that's Mr. Warner. He never came to court on the Wonder matter.
Yeah. You should forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, let me just take one more break, Dr.
Right.
Wayne, and we'll come back with some more. Boom. Yeah, back again. So, Dr. Wayne, you know, when you see a man in the life come out a certain way and doing certain things, and as yourself, you revolutionary activist, you fighting for the people, sometimes it does stem from your childhood. Was that the case with you? Like, did you have a upbringing of battles, of fighting?
It's likely. I grew up in Claxton Bay.
Right.
My paternal grandparent, Thomas Kublalsingh, was extremely wealthy. He used to work for Forest Park, and he was one of the big jefes in Forest Park. We used to call him Piti Babu, a small king. And he had a big French Creole house. He had big water tanks and pens and orchards, and he's a well-established man, very strict man. The caliber of men then were very they were very strict, very serious men. You understand?
I can imagine.
My father didn't like him. Father was a mannish fella. He never liked to
right.
go to school and things. He liked to lie under the bridge and bribe teachers with mango, Julie mango. Right? His other brothers went to Naparima College and things. His children, they went all into the bank and worked. But he was an exception. He was a man you couldn't rule easily. My father, he was mannish. You know, he used to cuss. He used to play cricket. He was a good cricketer. That's the kind of guy he was.
Right.
And my mother came from a very strict Presbyterian background, Danugdari Singh. It was Danugdari Singh and Kublalsingh. Two, I think in the ancestral time they came from the Sikhs. Right? And they were very decent, humble, hardworking people. Okay? But I never liked school.
Right.
I never liked school. I hated school. I hated the licks.
You hate the licks?
I hated seeing other people getting licks. I know a guy called Desmond. He's standing in front of the blackboard there and he crying, and the teacher hit him on the back of his leg with a whip. I couldn't handle those things. You understand? Now my father, I never liked Naparima College either when I went there. I was getting into fights because I had a very delicate sense of honor. You tell me anything, I want to fight.
Delicate sense of honor.
I want to fight. I had 5 sisters, 2 brothers. We grew up in a very small house on the hill, and we had a big open place in the back with cane and forest and so on. So I like that. I like going and catching crab. I like to go with my father into Pointe-à-Pierre, Texaco. There was something called a barrier. I couldn't go in easily. We used to sneak under the wire and go and catch wabbing in the night. I like that adventure. Come back in the morning, my father wake up everybody, curry fish for everybody. Right? That was his spirit. You know? He's a man who don't like to work, and he has an independent worker. He was a house painter. He didn't want to work for nobody. So I liked my father. He used to take me to cinema. He used to take me to cricket. I went to see.
So you grew up poor?
Well, poor in the sense of financially poor, yes.
Yeah, financially.
But in terms of parentage, heritage, very wealthy. You know, Presbyterian tradition, the tradition of reading, which I picked up very early. When I used to go with my father to paint all over the place. I only watching the ground. Why do you think I watching the ground? I put newspaper, to paint. I reading the newspaper. You understand? I just reading all the time.
I always love reading,
You know, I think that's a very important thing for children, to inculcate in your child the love of reading. because reading brings language, and language helps you to cope with skills. You understand?
Yeah.
So if you can't cope with language skills, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Either
Right.
verbally or either in writing. You have to have those skills. All right? Put away the
Alright.
guns now. Just
Oh God.
keep talking.
Tell them about that now.
Yeah, just keep
Tell them
fighting.
about that.
Keep fighting. Kublalsingh never took up a gun. Kublalsingh could have taken up guns all the time.
Right.
You know?
Correct.
A man approached me with a gun, take his gun, $5,000 buy it.
Yeah.
Never me. I want all the struggles without lifting a gun. Putting a gun, that's not the way you win the struggle. That's a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
Now you might be using guns for a living.
Yeah.
You know, you have a hit. You know, that's your economic asset. So that's a different story. All right?
Yeah.
But guns, activists and revolution, you know, I have a different kind of revolution.
Yeah.
Developmental revolution. Without guns.
Yeah.
We talk.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't think I could convince hardcore criminals
To put on the
with
guns.
to put on their guns, because they already have a set, they have a system, and they belong to jail. That's the best they could do. Swift justice for them. There are a set of people here who you just can't talk to, deal with, manage.
Yeah.
You understand? And I'm not just talking about people in the East-West corridor or in certain areas, but I'm talking about all over Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah.
Especially the elites, white-collar criminals. Can't manage them. I know them. I've dealt with them.
Yeah.
They're very tricky. In the judicial system, they're there. They're in the doctoring system, in the health system. All of these elites, you know, lawyers and doctors, many of them are corrupt. You know, and they all belong to jail.
Right.
You know, not just the ones who toting guns,
Right.
killing willy-nilly. So how we reach here again, I forget.
I mean, we just having a conversation.
Right, so yes,
You
I
know?
went to Napa River
Yeah.
College and did A-levels in economics.
Yeah.
I did very well, pretty good in economics. I did geography, history, which seriously grounded me in history and geography and economics. And they didn't offer literature in school, so I did literature outside. And I went to UE here. So that's basically my upbringing. And basically, when I think of my childhood, what I enjoyed most was my father. Going out and setting traps for birds and fishing, and hunting, and the wildlife, you know.
Yeah. You still rock back and reminisce on those times?
Well, it comes to me. It comes to me a lot. It comes to me a lot.
How you feel when you
As
think
grow.
about those young times?
Yeah, I feel happy. I'm glad that my father was the kind of guy he was. He was a cosbud. He never took any, I don't want to use the word from anybody.
Yeah.
And that's how he lived his life.
Yeah,
you know,
he was
and, he was a managed fella. And he used to say, I never met such a stupid man before. He called me stupid because, you know, I was a book.
Yeah.
But later in life, when he saw me in action,
Right.
I
So
saw
he
what I
got
was
the
doing.
chance. He got the chance to see
he got
you
very,
in
very,
action.
very, very excited about me, about
Really?
his son.
Hmm.
Very excited. He used to go and sell my books.
Yeah.
You say, okay, G,
Yeah.
you know Kublalsingh? No, I don't know. You know Kublalsingh?
Yeah. He promoting you out there.
Well, he vexed if you know Kublalsingh. He want to fight with you.
Yeah.
All right?
Supporting you. Full on
Yeah, so he turned, you know.
Yeah.
He saw who I was,
Yeah.
you know.
So you as a man coming through the paces, seeing the different governments, different parties, different everything. How do you see the vision of Trinidad and Tobago right now? We falling, as they say.
Well, I think
You know,
both
like-
political parties, the mainstream political parties, are failing.
Right.
As I said, Dr. Rowley, if he gets his money in that gas money, which shared fields in Venezuela,
Yeah, that
He
dog,
was-
this dog, sir. Bye. Hashemad bye.
chorus.
Yeah,
He just spent it on government services and to keep himself in power.
yeah.
If Ms. Kamala Prasad Bisesa gets it, I don't think she will ever get back into power. I curse them so much, I don't think they could ever get back there.
Kamala,
Yeah.
Mrs. Kamala.
Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bisesa.
You
yes.
don't think she could ever get back in power?
She wouldn't, because the amount of cost I put on during the second hunger strike, I think that sealed their fate. I'm just
Yeah.
talking loud and big clear.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just,
So you think that the PNM
that's
would
my belief.
win the next election, basically?
yes, if there is no serious intervention by a third party or some kind of coalition, but I don't think Ms. Kamala Prasad, she cut it out because she criticized Maduro. I wanted to impose a different leader, a non-elected leader called Guido. in Venezuela. So they don't like her. They're not going to share any gas money with her. She's a liability.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry to talk about her.
No,
but
I
she has
like how you
betrayed
keep
us
it
on
real.
several occasions.
Yeah.
And that is the court itself said very unfavorable things about her in their ruling.
Yeah.
Yes.
So why she don't step down then?
Well, that's power, sir. Power. You know, it's called power.
So she could stay there as long as she wants, so it don't have anything to...
Well, she has a good majority of her executive, and they're propping her up.
Oh,
Her executive is propping her up.
that's how it go.
That's how it is, and she's propping up the executive. But they're going to face doom and defeat. I'm sorry to say that's the thing, you know. They need somebody to get in there, somebody who has some kind of integrity,
Right.
somebody who could manage the young people, teach them how to behave in power.
True.
How to behave in power is very important.
True.
You have to talk the truth.
True.
You have to commit to your promises. You have to engage in some
have
kind
to
of
be
Ital
Ital.
development.
You have to be
You have to be
Ital.
real. You understand?
Yeah.
And sorry to say they're not like that, you know, and they're not going to make it. They're not going to make the development, and Dr. Rowley isn't going to make the development. They both need to be removed and replaced by younger people like yourself,
Yeah.
who understands Trinidad and Tobago and look at what you have, your assets, and use these assets. Don't rely on the foreigners to build you.
Correct.
Don't rely on the foreign gas money to build you.
Yeah.
Rely on your people.
To have so much here to
intelligentsia.
build. To have so much here to build.
Yes.
You know, like, even myself as a young man in the music industry,
Yeah, exactly.
it's been so difficult to reach from here to here.
Yeah.
Not even here.
Yeah.
Here to here.
Yeah.
Because
so much music, so much millions of
yeah,
dollars
and
could be
good
made on
music, good artists, you know,
Yeah, good
proper
artists.
artists. You know, we put on our own shows. You know, we do so much by ourselves now.
Yeah.
You know, as a new generation coming up
Yeah.
with the social media and everything.
Yeah.
And if the government or just people in the higher places could just look down on us and just give us a hand. There's
Yeah.
so many different. When you look around, it's just talent overflowing. When you go on the internet and you look at what the young people doing today,
Absolutely.
there's so much different talent,
Yeah.
you know?
A lot of talent is there.
Yeah.
And giving a hand doesn't necessarily mean giving you money, eh?
Correct.
Giving
It's
a
not
hand
even
just
about that.
bigging you up, talking you good,
Correct,
inviting
correct.
you,
Supporting
socializing
you.
with you,
Yeah,
supporting
putting you on
Coming to
platforms.
see what you're doing.
You know, yeah.
Listen to
yeah.
some of your songs, some of your lyrics.
Yeah.
Saying, I don't like that too much, I like that, you know? Being
Build
there
a
with you.
relationship, you know?
You know.
Come on. Why it have to be this stuck up thing? And because you see, Prime, like you said, you all show up in front of Kamala and she came outside. And that was amazing to hear because, like, imagine you had that power to get the Prime Minister to come down to you like if...
Well, I'll just tell you
You
one
know?
thing. We went to a house in the night. I didn't tell the people down there. We had a night at a meeting at about 10 o'clock. I said we're going to Kamala's house tonight because if I told anybody, they have Secret Service always listening to you. That's one thing I wouldn't tell you. The Secret
Yeah.
Service, what they call the special branch, they're
Right.
always listening to you on the phone. All right, so you have to use your little skills there, you know. Just talk the truth and you confuse them
Yeah,
because there is so much information going on, they get confused.
yeah. No doubt.
So we went, and she didn't expect us. She was playing tennis, and we gave her the report.
Right.
It was early 2012. And then sometime after, we went to her office and protested vehemently, colorful things, you know, national flags and everything.
Right.
But she sent a letter down to us. She didn't come down. She sent a letter down to us. And in the third meeting, the third time is when we went into the parliamentary building to hear. We went to meet her afterwards several times.
Right. Yeah, man.
She didn't treat
Right,
us well at
whatever.
all, you know.
Yeah.
Because as far as she's concerned, we are Lagoon, they were Lagoon coolies, you know.
But that's our own people.
We had one, sorry to say this, we had one Caucasian girl with us. Mr. Siu, where your passport? Buffing up the man.
Now she said.
Beautiful gentleman. Not her, but her security
Oh.
guards.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's not how you treat people. These are people in the community with their homes at risk. You know, they're
Yeah.
concerned, they're grieving, they have
Correct,
problems.
Correct.
You understand? So that tells you about the mentality of a set of people,
Yeah.
supporters. Anyway, sorry to be so harsh, but that's
But Mr.
what happened.
Kublalsingh, you have anything that you want to tell the people before we wrap up? You know?
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of criminals in Trinidad and Tobago.
Right.
in the political arena,
Political
in
criminals.
the business arena,
Hmm.
in the underground, about gangs. You have to take strong action and swift action
Yeah.
by revolutionizing the justice system, yeah, to deal with them. That's the first thing. You can't have crime in Trinidad and Tobago and progress. All your developmental works will be spoilt. People can't come outside. Young ladies can't walk the streets. Children afraid to walk, coming in father's cars. And secondly, you have to deal with poverty. You have
Tell
to
them.
deal with poverty.
Tell them.
And you can't deal with poverty as a government. You have to get the people to help you.
Yeah.
The churches, the NGOs, the communities. Bring them alive and let them help others, you know. And then you have to deal with development, genuine Ital development, not just fake development.
Yeah.
Putting another smelter is not development. 100% owned by the Americans. How is that going to develop you? Cutting down Chatham Forest.
Yeah.
That's not Ital development. You have to be genuine with your development, genuine measures.
Yeah.
And to the young people,
Yeah.
you keep on fighting. And you must fight clean.
Yeah.
Fight clean, be positive, learn a little bit of law, learn your language and your reading, be aware of what's happening in the world, learn to use the internet because there's a lot of fake stuff coming across,
Correct.
and keep on fighting for yourself and your family and for the country, the Caribbean, Latin America.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So, Dr. Kublalsingh, it was a blessing to have you here. You know, I'm sure the people learn a lot. I'm sure the people learn. I learn a lot. Spidey, you learn a lot, eh? Right. And that is most important on Talks with KG. You know, we're trying to educate the people and bring the information forward. So, Dr. Wayne, big up yourself all the time.
God bless.
Right? I know you're dealing with your health. I wish you good health and all the blessings in the world. Right?
Thank you. God bless you.
Know. Yeah, man. Boom.
Wah, wah, wah.